Hello, job seekers. Melanie Woods here. And it's been a little while as our team took a break, but I am so excited to share with you today the 2022 resume template. Now, for those of you that don't know us, and this is the first time you're watching one of our videos, me and my team are committed to providing as many free resources as we can to job seekers to help you land a job faster if you're out of work or if you're looking to change roles. We also try and provide you as many free resources as we can for those of you just wanting to grow your career and needing some career help and assistance. Now, all of our information is stuff that we're really proud of because we take the time to test it. We look and see what is going to work best for you. And every year, one of the things that we do is we do a lot of testing to come up with a new resume template that we feel confident is your best bet going forward for this next year in order to help you with your job search. So this is the day that we are releasing the 2022 resume template. Now, again, how we come across with this process is every year we do one. So we start with that as a base and looking and see what we have from last year. We try to say, okay, as a team, what has changed? I talk with other HR people, I talk with other HR recruiters, and try to understand what is different in the market for job seekers and what is different from the company perspective. And then we make tweaks to the resume template we have and start testing it. Now, one of the other things that we do a lot of work on is going off and seeing the different applicant tracking systems that you as a candidate are trying to make it through. Because remember, you always have two audiences that you're trying to work with when you're doing your resume. There is all of these applicant tracking systems that you have to make it through. And then there's the actual people who are going to be looking at your resume. And make no mistake, who's the one that's going to hire you? The people that are actually reviewing your information. But you got to make sure you get through that first system. So we look and see what's changed with all the applicant tracking systems. What are the new features that they're offering to different companies and to HR people in order to make it easier for them? Well, if you don't know about those changes, how are you supposed to, as a candidate, change and adjust your resume to fit? So that is our process. Now, once we take all that data, we start taking the different new resume formats that we have and we start testing them through the systems. We create a bunch of Gmail, thank you, Gmail, a bunch of different Gmail email accounts, and we start applying for jobs through the systems. And we target sometimes bigger companies like Apple and Exxon, and we target smaller companies. So we try to understand what are we seeing different in the application processes that you all are going through. And then we take all of that data and we mold it down into one resume template that we feel like is going to be your best bet in order to get through not only applicant tracking systems, but also to show your best to the different hiring managers, human resources, recruiters, and sourcers that are looking at your data. I'm going to tell you at the end of this video how you can get a copy of that resume template. Make sure you realize this is free. Nobody should ever be charging for this resume template. We put it together and it is free, and we share it out with anybody who wants it. If you are a career coach giving coaching to somebody else, one of my HR peers that helps tons of job seekers, I am more than happy to get you this resume template. The only thing that we ask is two things. One, it always remains free. You do not have our authorization to charge anyone for this resume template. The whole intention of us doing all this is that there's free resources for job seekers. So it must remain free. You can't charge for the template. And two, that you also make them go through and watch this video. And the reason for it is I'm about to explain to you why we made the choices we did on this resume template. We have found if we just send out the resume template, what happens is people with good intentions start changing and tweaking things, and they undo what specifically we were trying to accomplish. And then you might as well just, create one at random. The whole point of doing the testing and saying, here's why we do this, is you should keep it that way. And that way you have a better chance. When you start changing and adjusting and tweaking a bunch of things, then it may not be as effective for you. So we ask, it always has to remain free. And please, please, please watch the video. Now, I'm going to go very fast in this video because a lot of things we have already covered in previous videos from previous years where we didn't change certain parts of the resume, but I am going to dive a little deeper into other portions. There is also additional videos out on our YouTube channel that'll be releasing, which will go more in depth about some of the changes that we saw this year in the applicant tracking systems and some of the changes that we saw with the company application processes. And that will further help you with your job search. There's over 250 videos out there, job seekers, all free, all designed to help. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll consider doing that now, as well as following us, both me and my company, CGL Recruiting, on LinkedIn, and we will make sure to continue to get you the free resources. Okay, enough of me just talking. Let's jump into the template and take a look. Here we go. Okay, so when we start looking at the template, the top section, and that is this area, this header section, remained the same. Now, remember from last year, we did do an HR survey where we did ask individuals what do they want the LinkedIn URL now on everybody's resume or not? And the absolute answer was yes, 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 please have them put their LinkedIn URL there. So if you're not doing that yet, please make sure you do it because it is something that companies and HR people are looking for. Okay, let's move down into the summary section, which is this next section. Now, the section itself remained the same, but I want to tell you about something new that we saw this year. Some of the newer applicant tracking systems, and boy, there are a ton. There are hundreds of applicant tracking systems out there. A lot of the newer ones are taking the data that is in the different sections and pulling out skills based on the verbiage that's there. So don't get me wrong. We don't ever think that you're going to have an HR person, a recruiter or sourcer reading necessarily this whole summary section. But we are going to see is the different applicant tracking systems parsing some of this data out and then keeping it as key skills that you're targeting in against their system. Now, this is something that's newer. We saw this, one of the ones, Apple, this year definitely has this. And one of the other videos we'll record, I'm going to show you this on the Apple system, where they're just pulling it from the large sections like this. So you do still want to maintain this, even though you're looking at it more from that first audience, the applicant tracking systems, rather than somebody who may or may not read the entire thing through. We do still want you to bold. We got really good feedback from up here. You can see where it says human resources professional in bold. Whatever you have that as, you want to make sure you bold it. Why? When you have recruiters and sourcers looking at so many resumes so quickly, the best way that they can put you in there, oh, this person's an HR person, oh, this person's a sales and marketing person, is for you to hit it really strongly right there. Now, this resume format that I'm showing you is definitely based on US norms, right? You're not going to see any picture on here and other things, but this will work for the majority of countries unless you have a country that has something specific additional requirement, in which case definitely connect with an HR person in that country for what other things might be needed. But for this one, please bold what is that initial classification of you as an individual, and do not make it too specific. This is not the place to put human resources generalist, human resources business partner. This is where you're wanting to talk more about your function. Are you a supply chain person? Are you a marketing person? Are you an HR person? The reason you don't want to go too specific on this very first section is, let's say they're hiring for a director of human resources. And the reality is you put human resources generalist. Now, you may have been a generalist for a very large company, but they may say, oh, they're not director level, and stop reading. We don't want that to happen. We want them to keep reading on. So leave it functionally more at a higher level and not specific to a job title. Okay, now we still have this bulleted section like we have in previous years. Remember, we've learned that when we talk with recruiters and sources and HR people, the ones that are most impactful from this bulleted list are these ones that are here on the left, these first 5 on the left. And that's just the way that people tend to read left to right. And so they tend to go down that first list first. Now, also remember, you should be adjusting your resume in some form every time you apply for a job. Now, before you go, wait, I can't do that. You can do that. It's actually very easy with this bulleted section. This bulleted section allows you to take out some of the key things that the different hiring managers or the recruiters and sources are looking for. Like, for example, if they say, I am looking for somebody that can do curriculum development, and that is definitely in the requirements, and you see it several times, that will be something that if you have that skill, you want to pull it into one of your bullets, preferably one of the top bullets. Know your audience. A lot of times you have the entry level sourcers or the entry level recruiters that if you're in a very technical job, they may not understand what you do as an advanced engineer or a scientist or another role. And so instead they're just pulling out words that the hiring manager put into the job description, into the requirements for the role. So if you can hit them very early on with, I have these requirements, you have a better chance of getting on to the next level. Okay, so remember, this is the section that you're going to change when you're looking at adjusting your resume before you apply for a position. Okay, let's go down. The professional experience area of the resume, this has not changed a lot, but I do want to talk about something that we did notice from the last resume format that we did. So you may have remembered that we added in this section here, which is underneath the company. It's got a kind of information about the company. This line is incredibly helpful to you getting other industry information or industry supported onto your resume. Now, in this case, it says first company is a global manufacturer of renewable parts and equipment for the aviation and aerospace industries. Now, let's say that somebody's hiring for a position in HR, since this is an HR resume, and they want somebody who's worked for an aviation manufacturer. You may not inherently have that as one of the bullets underneath your resume, because it's hard to fit that in sometimes with everything else that you're trying to fit in, showing your accomplishments. So this area underneath the company, this 1 or 2 lines, really helps pump in some great keywords that can help you come up through that first applicant tracking system, that first audience that you're trying to satisfy to get to the people. Now, the problem we saw from doing this last year to this year is when we told you to add this last year, a lot of people were adding their resumes in when they're applying online, and the data is saying, do you want to load the data from your resume? Most of the applicant tracking systems were ignoring this line. They were ignoring the line and not adding it underneath the professional work experience section. They just didn't recognize it since it didn't have a bullet. So we played with this a little bit. We tried putting a bullet with it. We tried putting it in different sections, and it didn't work great and it didn't look great. So we looked at it from a different angle. And that is, the applicant tracking systems are still looking at your full resume when they're doing the searches, right? And so it's okay that this line does not load underneath that work experience section. Don't stress about it. As long as you've uploaded your full resume in there still, in the ones that we tested, it is still coming up as keywords when they're doing a search or a Boolean string search in order to find somebody like, for example, aviation and manufacturing. So leave that section in there and don't get frustrated if it doesn't load in to that one professional experience area. Okay, I do want to talk about dates. So there is a lot of people having different feelings about the dates on the resume. Should you be putting month and year? Should you be putting just year? There are some systems, some of the applicant tracking systems will let you get away with just years, but not many. Most of them are still requiring that you put in a month and a year. So you can get away with some of them, but not all of them. So it's up to you as to how you want to do it. If you want to try to do the years, I know when you do just years, it can actually, it can help you de-emphasize if you had a couple jumps or if you had a gap in between something and you're just putting years. It can help you de-emphasize that. Don't ever lie on a resume. We've said that multiple times. Don't lie, right? But you can emphasize and de-emphasize other things. A resume is not a legal document. It is a representation that you put together of what you think is the best of you. So you can do a little bit of emphasis and de-emphasis on different things. Okay, let's move on to the next section. We decided to include in this resume template, and if this does not apply for you, you can just obviously take this section out. But that is an actual section that addresses the gap that you have from COVID. Now, this global pandemic has been so incredibly hard on job seekers. I mean, holy cow, has it been hard on job seekers. And for some of you, you have a gap of 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months that you have not been able to find employment, or you just did some little contract things. And so that leaves you with a huge gap on your resume. And if your gap is over 6 months, our recommendation is that you address that gap on your resume. Now, in this case, this is how we recommend you do it, and I'm going to explain why. So it's got still, you can see at the top, human resource professional, actively job seeking during COVID-19. Now, why do you actually want to put COVID-19 in there and remind everybody? There's going to be a whole new workforce coming in over the next 5 years, and the only thing that they're going to remember about COVID is they got off of school or they did school from home, and they're not going to know or realize how hard it was for job seekers and how there were so many people on the market, there still is, and so many jobs not available. And so this section is going to help, as a replacement or a reminder of that. The other thing that this section does is we didn't just put this top area of, during the global pandemic, was looking for a job. Excuse me. What we put in here is, this is what I did to remain current in my profession, in my industry. I didn't just sit on the couch, eating Netflix, or watching Netflix, eating chips, right? This is the time of what you did during this pandemic to stay active in your profession, your industry, and to stay active as a professional. So any training that you did during this time, any volunteer work that you did during this time, I'm not saying to put like 18 bullets here, right? You don't want to take up a huge amount of space, but it is an area where you can address some of that and show those competencies that you're still motivated, that you're still, focused on the future. And if you had during the COVID timeframe, which a lot of people did, 8, 9 different very, very short gig or contract jobs, you can show them here underneath one section, without it having to totally look, across your whole resume like you just sat the whole time and hopped jobs. You can put them together underneath one section. If you have questions on this or any other parts of this resume template, please do put it in the comments down below. We do look at them. We do reply to them. We will get you answers on how best to handle certain things if you do have questions. Okay, let's keep going on to the next section. Here we go. You know what? Before we go any further, let's talk about length, because there is a whole lot of drama on how long a resume should be. And I really want to address it. And I'm going to tell you what we did for this template. We actually made this template 3 pages long. Now, wait a minute before you get all upset. You may not need 3 pages. But let me tell you this, unless you are a brand new graduate out of high school, university, and have almost no work experience, you need more than a 1-page resume. Anybody who's telling you you only need 1 page does not understand how the recruiting process and how all of these systems work. It does not do it with 1 page. There is not enough information on a 1-page resume for you to cast a wide enough net to get pulled up by the applicant tracking systems, by the recruiters, by the sourcers. You need data in order to come up in those different searches. Now, if you want to have some kind of snazzy 1-page resume for the one that you may still, if you actually hand people resume at some kind of event or something, fine, go for it. But I am telling you, a 1-page resume is not enough. And one of the things we have another video coming out on too is there are so many people giving bad information, telling individuals cut off this part of your past experience. And they're just setting lines in the sand saying, yeah, if it's more than 10 years, cut it off. We have a video coming out that I'm going to show you exactly how that works against you. We're going to run through and I'm going to show you piece by piece why you should not do that. Now, I'm not saying you necessarily need all of your experience on your resume, but you cannot base it just on more than 10 years and it's out. There's way more factors than that. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing so it will notify you. Subscribe to all, and it will notify you too when that video comes out. So you will be able to see exactly how that makes a difference. Okay, let's go on and talk about the rest of this resume. So we have several different positions here. We did do one to show you if you have worked at a company and you have more than one job title in that company, you have a choice. Now, in this case, excuse me, we have this person had two positions, and we base this all off an HR role. So they were an HR generalist, and then they were an HR development manager with the same company. Now, there's a couple of best practices you want to do if this applies to you. The first is you only want one set of dates. You see how it says July 95 to September of 2000? You only want one set of dates. Don't put dates by each one of the job titles below. Why? Because when you do that, the applicant tracking systems parse it as two separate jobs. And then you look like a job hopper. For some people who have had maybe 4 jobs, 5 jobs, and they want to, because they're different, list those on their resume, when they put different dates with each one, it recognizes it as a completely different job and it looks terrible. You look like a job hopper. So one set of dates that you then have the two positions. That's the much better way to do this. The other thing is you don't always have to list all of the different job titles. If the last job title you had is the one that you want to emphasize, then list that one. If you had one in between these other two job titles, but it was just for a 2-month period and it's really, you don't feel like it's worth putting in there, don't put it in there. You don't have to emphasize that. So please don't feel like you need to. Okay, let's move on. So this actually fell to page 3, we said, of the resume. It's not a full 3 pages. It would be easy to shorten this one up to 2 without, damaging your ability to get through the applicant tracking system. But I did it because I wanted you guys to know if you have to go to 3 pages, I have never in my entire life, nor do I know another HR person or recruiter that has not hired somebody because their resume went to 3 pages. Not a single one do I know. If you have a great candidate, that is not the thing that's going to be the yes or no. And I will tell you, there's lots of people I never even got to consider for positions because they never showed up in the searches that we did. And with the internet and everybody's so accessible, the only way to find people is through all these searches and these applicant tracking systems. Okay, let's go on to this third page in this section. So the first part here is education. Now, this is still a choice for you as a job seeker as to where education goes. And I always say you need to base this on how important the education is to the position and how important it is that you want to pull somebody through your whole resume. What do I mean by that? Excuse me. Okay. If you are going for a PhD position, a doctor of engineering and whatever, right? You have a PhD and your dissertation is important and all of that. You may want to move this education section to the first page of your resume because it is something that if it's an absolute requirement, they're going to want to know that maybe a little earlier on to classify you in. However, what you can also do, and we saw this, Career Builder years ago had done a study where this kind of came out. Education is one of the biggest gates that we see. And by gates, it's one of the biggest things that recruiters and sourcers, when they're trying to qualify in candidates, they look at. And so when it's at the bottom of your resume, what you end up doing is you pull that recruiter down through your resume looking for it. And it can get you some extra eye time on your resume. So it's your choice, depending on how important it is, if you keep it at the bottom of your resume or if you put it at the top. Either way, the applicant tracking systems are going to catch it. Okay. So the sections that we added, they're a little different. We've always had a section that was certifications. We added certifications and highlighted training. Why did we do this? Well, what we've seen in this global pandemic and in talking with so many of you job seekers is so many times you're trying to gain new skills and you don't yet have those new skills anywhere in the bullets on your resume. But you've taken additional training, either through LinkedIn Learning or some other training system that's out there that you want to have a way to highlight on your resume. This is a section where you can do this. So let's say, for example, this HR person was applying for a position that required GDPR compliance, that required diversity and inclusion, that required audit and due diligence experience and skills. And they didn't have it yet on the resume, but they've been taking a lot of training on it. And so this is a place where you can add that training to your resume. And it will help you do two things. One, you just added a bunch of keywords and it's going to get you through the applicant tracking systems if they're saying, I want somebody who's got due diligence. And you have that, boom, it's going to come up as your resume making it through that first thing. And then the other thing is once the HR or recruiter or sourcer sees that on here, it's going to say, oh, well, I can see that they have due diligence foundations. I want to talk with them to understand more just how much experience they have in that. So that's why we added this section. Now this section, remember I told you, you should be adjusting your resume in some way, shape, or form every time you apply for a job. Now, one way to do that is definitely in that bulleted section, but down here in this highlighted training is another section or area where you can do this. This is an area where if you're applying for a position and they're asking for due diligence, and you've taken that training, add it to your resume before you hit that apply button. That will be brilliant to help you get through those systems like we just talked about. Okay, and then the last section that we did add this year is we've always said, you've got to, of course, have the different software and hardware on your resume, but this is becoming more and more important. And I would go out and take a look at a lot of the job descriptions that are posted, the job postings that are out there now. And under the required skills, you see more and more that companies are wanting people with experience with specific software and or even hardware if you're in an IT type role. And they want you to absolutely have it not as a preferred, but as a required. And anytime it comes up as a required skill, somebody's going to be using that to be searching for candidates. And if it doesn't show on your resume, you have the problem of not coming up in that search. Doesn't matter how good you are, you never get seen, never come up in the search. Well, especially when you're a little bit, more on your later on in your career and you've worked with so many systems, it can be hard to fit all those in your bullets when you're really trying to show in your bullets the accomplishments that you've done, right? You're trying to show those accomplishments as opposed to just listing in the software underneath each job. So this is a section where you can make sure and include that data. And I'll tell you, we even when we're searching for candidates have people fall out all the time because of software. Be easy. Be the easy candidate that they contact you faster because you have it in there. So take the time and make sure you're listing your additional technical skills that you do have. Okay, I know that was a lot of data. I tried to go fast, but not too fast. I hope if you have questions, you will put a comment down below. Let's talk about how you can get to this free template. It's really easy. All you have to do is put a comment on this video saying, I would like a copy of the template. And then we have a system set up because we get so many requests that it will automatically send you saying, go to this link and here's how you get the template. We don't capture data to use or sell. We don't do anything like that. I promise you, this is 100% no strings attached, free template for you to use. If you share it with other people, and I hope you do share it with other people, we want everybody to have a chance to show their skills, right? If you do share it with other people, the only thing that we ask is one, again, you cannot charge anybody for this template. And two, make them go back and watch the video so they don't go back and change something like making their margins big, which we've already seen the data that we know that hurts you, or making other changes with the dates where they're putting dates for each position, and that undermines what we're trying to accomplish. We truly are all in this together. We have a bunch of new videos coming out. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do that now. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.